I really want to say thank you to all of you to come. I know I sent out just a, hey, we love Skillstruck. And I remember, luckily, Mandy introduced me to Jerem last year and Skillstruck. And I think a couple of you were actually on that call. I think Valine, you were on that call. Maybe Tony, I think you were. And I'm like, hey, I'll guinea pig it. I'll see how this goes. And we loved it. And I actually brought 2 rebels. So my kids are with me tonight to answer any questions that you have, because I know for me, whenever I'm buying a new program or thinking about a new program, I want to hear from them more than I want to hear from the guide. So please feel free to ask them any questions. They're pretty honest for the most part. So they'll share their experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'll share my experiences as a guide about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I know that there are a lot of options out there. But we were thrilled that we ended up going with this one this past year. So we're going to show you all around, well, Jerem is going to show you all around the platform. And then we'll tell you how we used it, because again, they have all sorts of incredible lesson plans and a planner and all that stuff, which we didn't use once, because as a student directed school, we just let them go at their own pace and run through the badges, and we didn't use it. However, it is there if you want to use it. So that he's going to show you all the different aspects. And again, I can tell you how we used it at Revel. And again, answer any questions that you have. We just felt that coding, you know, it's a second language, and we think it's a language that all of our kids really need to have. Finally, in Ontario, they added coding to the math curriculum. So the fact that we already had all of this in place was actually a huge draw for a lot of families to come to us, because we already did have quite a coding background. That being said, when I say coding background, I have purposely remained ignorant on a lot of it so that it's really the rebels going to rebels, because they know I don't know what I'm talking about. And so it really does create that learner driven foundation that we have at Revel. So you can know absolutely zero about coding and use Skillstruck and be successful. You can be a massive coder and use Skillstruck and be successful. But I would just, again, not answer their questions, because the beauty with this program and with coding in general for me is the persistence builder, or the fact that they are going to get frustrated when they leave out a backslash and they have to stick with it till they figure it out, which again is so Acton that I thought it really went hand in hand. So I'm going to hand it over to Jerem, and you can then lead us through the system, but please do ask questions, because we're here, right? No.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Erin. And I'm excited to have SJ and Asher on as well to answer questions. They're going to be the real, it doesn't matter what I say, honestly, it's whatever they say. So I'm happy to have them share their experiences. I do see a couple familiar faces, I think, from a year and a half ago when we all met. We've added a lot in the platform. We're constantly innovating and, adding more, projects and other technologies to make it more engaging for students. One thing I wanted to ask real quick, maybe for I don't know if it's how it is across the board, but maybe if we pinpoint maybe Rachel first, kind of if coding is something you've incorporated with your students in the last couple of years.
Not in a official manner. This past session, we did a growing curiosity session. So we had 2 of our heroes choose to do coding. And so they got on Scratch and were learning just on their own and created a little game. So but I know our learners would love it.
Okay. And I know Erin does, because you have like a kind of a 3-hour window, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of where the students are kind of on their own, grinding, learning. Again, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
We actually do quite a bit less.
Okay.
Our core skills is about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I would say so.
About an hour and a half, because we have too many fun things going on. So
And do you use Skillstruck in the core time, or is that outside the core time?
So we use it as part of our core skills. So we have Math, typing, reading,
Communication.
yeah. And the coding, but the coding definitely is one of the core skills and it takes precedence for sure.
Awesome. And Danny, I was told by Aaron, you kind of been doing this a while too. Is coding something you've implemented with your plan?
It is definitely something that they can choose to work on during their core skills time. We have some learners who are really into it and they do a lot of Khan Academy and then other programs as well. We have others who dabble in it every so often. And then we also have done the robotics and coding quest a couple times. So that kind of gets their feet wet a little bit.
Cool. Awesome. Any other, maybe Kristen or Lexi? I know Lexi is first year. Was this something that you incorporated or is that some kind of planned in the future?
We did Scratch last year. We did game design quest and it had Scratch. We used the Scratch had a class that we took. But what I found with Scratch is so many of them would just go and play the games that other people had made on Scratch and they didn't do any actual coding themselves. But we have a huge interest in coding. And on Fridays, we do passion projects, which is kind of like our version of the Growing Curiosity quest, but they get to choose it every Friday. And I would love if they had a coding option to be able to choose on Fridays for those who are actually interested.
Yeah, way cool. That's awesome. And Lexi?
We did the coding and robotics quest earlier in the year and they loved it. We did code.org with that. And like you were talking about I think Aaron was saying missing the backslash or missing one little part. Oh, they would get so frustrated, but were so proud of themselves once they got past that and they figured it out. So I haven't heard much about Skillstruck, so I'd love to learn more about it. So that's why I'm here today.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm really excited. You know, there recently came across a statistic from the Department of Labor. It blew my mind because it said out of the grades K through 12, 65% of those kids are going to be in a career in STEAM that doesn't exist right now. And when you think about that, you know, that's been happening for decades, but technology is a huge part. We see that intertwining with every single career and every single field. I came from a marketing background with, you know, a little bit of technology, a lot more technical marketing background. And I had to go on Google and YouTube and learn the basics of code to connect the websites and these pixels and all these different things I had to learn. And I remember when hearing about Skillstruck and their mission to you know, make it more equitable and have more students learn these skills that the job market is in such demand of, right? It really caught my attention. At the same time, you know, we're not wanting every student to become a computer programmer or a software developer. I know Asher on here, he's learning Python. I'll have him mention a little more, but he's learning Python. We have a Python 1, 2, and 3 course. These are kind of like college level courses. And he's 11 years old doing that. That's huge. At the same time, I asked what he wanted to be when he grew up. And he's like, I'm thinking I want to be a chef. He doesn't know for sure, but you know, we don't want everyone to have to be a computer programmer, but the skills that they learn are intertwined with everything. They bleed over into the math and the English and science, and they're going to improve the problem solving skills, critical thinking that is in huge demand as well in today's job market. Just those skills alone, right? So I want to jump into the coding platform of Skillstruck and show you what it looks like on the student side. And feel free, we're a tight-knit group right here. Feel free to unmute yourself and just cut me off if you have a question. If you have something in the chat, throw it in. And I'll introduce Anne here on the call. She's works with me at Skillstruck as support, and she'll be able to answer that in chat or call me out as well. So let's share my screen. One sec here. Always sharing screens. Too many screens popped up. Okay. So Skillstruck, and if you've used other platforms in the past, you're familiar that there's a lot of different coding languages. Like I've heard a couple times someone mentioned Scratch, that's like the foundations of JavaScript, which is one of the top 3 most in-demand languages right now. You know, Scratch is a lot more block-based, and so it can be fun for the younger grades, helps get that introduction in. We do a lot of block-based in the very younger grades, and we do wean them off that very quickly because we are aligned more with industry, helping them, you know, to be ultimate critical thinkers, kind of using the keyboard and typing out the lines of code. We do that at a younger age. But the whole entire Skillstruck platform is broken up into 3 parts. We have the teacher resources, which you might not use a lot with how Aaron has managed to do this. And I might just briefly touch on a couple of these. And the second is Launchpad and Voyage, which are the 2 coding platforms. Launchpad is going to be for the K through 5, and Voyage is at 6 through 12. Now, what I've noticed is that's not typical for how advanced a lot of the Acton Academy students are. It's very easy to toggle who's in Launchpad and who's in Voyage. It just ups, you know, the comprehension level of more. You're doing a little more reading in Voyage. You're doing a lot more of the typing out. So if I know, you know, Asher's 11 and he's in Python 1, he's not using Launchpad, and so that's you can use that as needs be. When we do implement with the schools, our implementation team will work all that with you and make sure you guys are ready and your kids are confident where they're at. And they can always change in the middle of a week and middle of semester, whatever they like. First, I'll jump in the Voyage. So what we'll see for the higher comprehension, how I mentioned Scratch teaches that JavaScript. Skillstruck teaches 4 different languages. So we have JavaScript, we have HTML, CSS, and Python. Those first 3 are more the web applications, dealing with websites. If anything you've ever touched on a website ever has got those. And then Python does a lot on websites as well, but it's more the software development side. And so that's one of the most in-demand coding languages ever. And it's something fairly unique to Skillstruck, and not a lot of the other programs out there will have that. Definitely not a lot of the free programs. And so when we jump first in here to the student section, this might seem like a ton of code right here in the beginning. Don't get overwhelmed. This is an example of a website the students can build once they learn how to connect HTML and CSS, right? In that middle is where they're typing their code. They're picking the file that they're working on, right? And even the project, they get a whole project portfolio where they get to keep everything. On the right, they get to run it and see what it looks like. They can open it in a new window to see what it looks like all big. On the left is where we talk about the self-guided learners, right? They have the textbook. So they're going to see all these glossary terms that usually don't mean what they mean when we talk about coding. So what an attribute is, what a tag is. And as they go through and learn this, they're going to have little practices right here on the left to try out. And then as you keep going down, you have a couple more practices, make sure that they're ready to go, because up next is, you know, a video of our team teaching a specific subject. And to test their comprehension, now they have a checkpoint. So when they start this checkpoint, like this specific lesson is text colors, which is one of the first things you learn in HTML. They're going to click start checkpoint. And this specific one is add, you know, 3 header tags, which are like the titles of a header, right? And when they push grade, it auto corrects it for them. Everything's auto graded. So how Erin, you know, she says she washes her hands from it, not very involved. This allows you to be very, you know, moved away from it, or having that distance, because the auto grader is going to tell them everything's kind of color coded, and it lets them know when there's an error. Again, test that comprehension. They have a lesson quiz where they're going to have debugging questions, multiple choice, and then the challenges. What's really cool is kind of at the end here, when we wrap up, I'll give everybody a link to sign in, and we'll go through a couple of the challenges together on HTML, and you'll kind of see what it looks like for the student. So you know, there's 10 different challenges they can choose from. I know Erin kind of has these all open for the kids, so they can kind of pick and choose what they want to do. If we go back, you kind of see they can easily switch from HTML, CSS, and they expound on each other. So maybe next year they're doing HTML2 or JavaScript 2, whatever they work on. And then they have, we go to the Python, it's very similar, Python 1, 2, and 3. They have the extra projects that you could assign, or like maybe a longer project you wanted to assign with a group, you can assign them together. That's all available right here. And all those projects are also auto-graded. So you don't have to worry about creating them or grading them. They do it on their own time. Tell me a little bit, Aaron, when you've done your badges, how you've aligned that to SkillsTrack.
So we did it. I try and keep things as simple as possible. So Python 1 is a badge. Python 2 is a badge. So as soon as they finish the course, and it's really easy to check on the teacher side, it shows student progress. And so you can see check. Okay, oh, they're right here on this one. And yeah, perfect. And you can see exactly where each kid is at. And that makes it super easy for us. So they just attach their screenshot onto Journey Tracker, and then they earn their badge once all of those little, so you can see all of those check marks are the ones that are completed. So it makes it super simple for you. We again, you can do different things. We said they had to do in the challenges, there's a ton of challenges. And we said, you need to be able to do 3 in the HTML.
Yes.
Yeah. So we said, do any 3. You pick any 3 challenges. Once you do 3 challenges, move on. But it allows you to set that. So if you wanted them to do every single challenge, you could. I think it's over. You don't need that much. If they can do 2 or 3 challenges, I think they can show they've got it. And then they get the little check mark. Yeah. So badge wise, it's super, super easy to put in. We have used the all the little lessons. So it says, welcome to SkillsTrack, HTML basics, headers, text, colors, fonts. Those were our challenges. So that's how they got their points on Journey Tracker once they finished each challenge. But the whole badge was once they finished that whole section. So
When you say challenges, are you saying they needed to choose any 3 of these, or they need to do all of these, but then it was in those other challenges, they do 3 of those?
Thanks, Rachel. Sorry. And especially because Journey Tracker has challenges and then SkillsTrack has, yes, let me slow down. So in Journey Tracker, we list all of these, see the headings on there. So HTML basics, headers, text, colors, that's what we call a challenge in Journey Tracker for their points. So once they finish, it's kind of like a unit, but we call it a Journey Tracker challenge. Within each of those, so there's the lesson, and there is the test that he was talking about. So there's like a debugging thing they have to do. And then there are challenges that they have. And I think there's normally around 6, Jerem, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it changes from time to time, 6 to 8. In ours, we've set that they have to finish 3 of those in order to count it as done. So in order to get that little black, circle with the check mark, 3 of their challenges have had to be done. Now, sometimes they love it so much, they just keep doing them. But for others that, they want the clear boundaries of what gets me that check mark. But you get to set that in your settings.
Yep.
Sorry. Thanks, Rachel.
Perfect question. Yes. And right here, we make it pretty autonomous for you. So you don't have to go there and check if they did 3. You go to manage curriculum. You can make sure everything's unlocked, and then you can right here require challenges, can up that to 2 or 3, whatever you'd like. Then once that gets, when they do have the check marks individually, let's say, if we go to variables on Python, once they get 3 on there, then it will automatically do that on the whole row for them. So show it again down here. Once they get their check marks, everyone here, then the black one is done, so they can get their challenge for Journey Front.
Yeah, so those are the 3, the code checkpoint, the lesson quiz, and then it has those challenges. Those are where we've set it to 3 for our school, but you can set it to a different number for your school. Yeah.
These are really kind of like activities to test their skills. So appreciate that input there. I know. Let's see, SJ, you were doing HTML, is that right? What was your thought process, or like what were you thinking when you first started, when you were in the middle, and then kind of when you ended, because you were you got like a week left of school and you ended recently. How did that all go for you?
Well, the one I finished recently was the CSS one.
Oh, yes.
I liked how it tuned in with the HTML. So they were kind of connected in that way. Yeah, starting it was a little bit easier at first, as a lot of things are. It's easy, and then it gets a bit harder as you go on. But so I had struggled with one a lot. Yeah, one of the projects. But when I finished it, I cannot tell you how excited I was and happy that I had done that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I would say, Ashley, would you say that you were, would you have considered yourself a coder or somebody who liked to code before Skillstruck?
No.
She was a bit of a reluctant coder, I would say, beforehand. And then because we made it a badge and they had to get one badge a year, and we started every single learner that we chose to start on Skillstruck. So like our 9-year-olds and above. Now you can go younger, and we will next year now that we've experienced it a bit more. But our 9-year-olds and up, they all started with HTML. And I think all of them, but a couple out of 35 have finished it. And again, we started that way because HTML is fun. It's colors, it's text. So maybe those kids who are more on the creative side and don't see coding as something that, they're not tech or whatnot. It was a great entry point for a lot of them. So again, we've done hackathons, we've done Scratch and microbits and code.org and all of that. This was the first time I saw SJ see herself as a coder, which was really, really cool for me, especially because she is really good at it. And so she finished HTML pretty early and then went on to CSS, finished that, and we'll see what you decide to do next year. But
Alrighty.
yeah, maybe the HTML2, CSS2, or maybe another language. So we'll see.
So
And then after
you
you
said-
did HTML2, right?
Yes.
Yes. And you saw yourself more as a coder in the beginning.
Yeah, I did. I really liked doing it. Like once I got like over like a big hump of when I was like really struggling with HTML, I was like really excited to do it and like did it in my free time during the weekends. And yeah, it was really fun.
That is so cool. So cool. And Aaron, you said you'd used a bunch of different stuff in the past. And kind of main difference you kind of mentioned was just them being able to go more on their own, or a little more in depth, or what were you seeing biggest
Well,
change?
and for a lot of the similar reasons, with Scratch, I love Scratch. I think it is an incredible entry point, especially because it's blocky, it's visual. You can create really cool games. We also would have learners who would go down the rabbit hole and play more games and actually build. So I think there are some limits. We still so for our younger learners, there was a Scratch badge. And then once they earned that, then they started into Skillstruck. I think there's definitely value in those. Not one single one of our kids wanted to do the coding because they're already on for math, and that's enough for them. So there's somewhat of you weren't thrilled about that idea of and code.org. I think it's fantastic, especially for like the hour of code and stuff like that. But trying to use it in order to form a badge and a sequential program, I found really, really difficult. And I found it, again, more game-based than authentic. And I feel like, especially our older learners or those who enjoy coding, found that it wasn't pushing them. They weren't challenged. It was just, I follow the sequential steps and I'll get where I need to go. But they weren't ever at that frustration point that Skillstruck brought to us in a sometimes awful, horrible, pain point way. But oh, just a second. My alarm just went on at the school. We're gonna turn that off before we call the police. Just one second.
You're good. Thanks for the insights there. Great to see your kids excelling at that. I want to quickly jump in and show a couple things in Launchpad to just show if you have those younger kiddos that maybe aren't ready to start typing out lines of code, they have a different option there. So I'll pull this up. And again, feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions. It's broken up into grade levels or tracks. Usually it's going to be tracks, I imagine, for Acton schools. So if we look in, like, this is kind of what a third grader would be doing. In a similar way, in these checkpoints, they're gonna have the video, the textbook, quizzes, but instead of the checkpoints, they're gonna have puzzles. So these are, again, this is a foundation of JavaScript. They're gonna come in here, again, plethora of puzzles, around 10 that they get to choose from. They get harder and harder as you go, as you learn more and more units that need to go in. And when it pulls up, these are really fun. Like we talk about Scratch, being able to move the blocks around. But at the same time, getting them ready for when they do switch to Voyage next semester or whatnot, they're going to type out their lines. They're going to move their blocks around. Like they have the opportunity to do that. Like, let's say if I put these two here, I'll show you. We'll click this little button and it switches. Let's run it first. So I'm going to move my camera around. If we run it, you'll see the guy move, giving instructions that, hey, you messed up, tell you what you did wrong. But you can see, this is what it looks like if you actually do type it out. So a lot of the students will keep this off and use the instructions to see what are the words they need to type out, because maybe they've done Scratch for 2 or 3 years and they want something that pushes them a little more. I know that's Asher, when we first got on the call, he had said, I was done doing that stuff. I wanted to push myself a little more. And so that doing the Python or the HTML really worked well for him. And let's say we go back here. Same for the kiddos. They have those videos and the textbook. There's a lot of games for the kids as they're learning maybe the keyboard, maybe learning what an algorithm is. Again, these aren't games that they're going to get so much lost in. They do it once and they complete it. They're not going to do it tons of times, which probably helpful for you guys. Like this one, I'll do the example. When you do code, a lot of times you're using, your fingers in spots like the greater than or less sign symbol. Maybe you're never really pushing those keys a lot. So this kind of gets progressively harder where they do have to actually use those symbols. And as they mess up, it's going to give them like their efficiency rate and their seconds. So we see schools doing like competitions with this all the time to see who can type the quickest and work hard on that. And so that's a big part of it as well. So those are kind of the big things I wanted to point out throughout the programs. And again, having it be auto-graded and checked off for the student allows them to go at their own pace and to collect their challenges, collect their badge at the end. I think if there's any questions, feel free to unmute or put in the chat. But we can also jump into kind of the hands-on activity we're going to be doing. But any questions as of right now, or how this relates to your students?
Hey, everybody. This is Tony here. Thank you guys so much for putting this together. I'm sorry, I'm kind of in between things, so I'm jumping in and out. But one of the things I was kind of looking at or wondering was, how do you, I know, Aaron, you talked about journey track and everything, and I don't guide myself, but I look, I look for the guide to kind of keep our egos in track in terms of like, are they meeting their goals and everything? Mm-hmm. So how do you guys utilize that with this program?
So we sit down at the beginning of the year, and if we say, okay, how many badges do you want to get through this year? Or we want to get through this one. Most of our learners decided they wanted to do one lesson a week. So they wanted to do headers that week. The next week is text colors, whatever sequential order it is, but they wanted to do one per week. And so with our goal sheets, we just said, okay, you're working on headers, you're working on this, but and with Journey Tracker, they use them as their challenges. So, and like if you set up the badge, Tony, so the badge would be like HTML, and then the challenges are the different lessons and skills track, and then they just mark those off. Maybe I'm not answering your question.
No, that's it. I can get it.
So
And
for
then-
us, and then they definitely get through the badge by about half of the year, would you say? Most of you guys finished it by around Christmas or January? Yeah, I'd say by the end of January, I think most of them had finished the HTML badge. Some of them decided to take a break. Some of them dove right into the next badge. We decided this year, it's the first year we've done it. We've always done a lot of coding, but we've never had a badge backing it before. But this made it so easy that we just, we have all these badges, and now we've got a couple who are hell bent on finishing every single strand there is before they graduate. So.
And then the follow-up question, thank you, Erin. The follow-up question is, how do you guys like know that a third grade badge is equivalent to what another, you know, school, another, whatever, I'm trying to be careful with it, you know, is equivalent in terms of like, what is the measure of a third grade, fifth grade, high school coding for whatever HTML or program that they end up doing?
I would say, well, and again, yeah, I mean, you're in California, Tony, and not too far from Silicon Valley. So you've probably got a different coding bent than we have in Ontario. Our coding just got put into our Ontario curriculum this year, so they're a bit behind. I would say with the tracks, so what he just showed you, it said grade 3 on ours, and I was so thankful they put track 3 instead of grade 3, just again, so it's less grade oriented. So my youngest son just finished his Scratch badge and then did the track 4. So he just turned 9 and he thought it was so much fun. It was like candy. He finished it in 2 weeks and he's starting his HTML badge.
Yeah.
So HTML, I would say I didn't learn until much later, but I'm old. But when I talk to a lot of our dads who actually are like, they work for Shopify and a bunch of different tech companies, the things that they're coming home showing them, it's not even in the high school curriculum in Ontario.
Is it, I mean, it's higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Now again, in Tony, I don't know about California though.
It's okay. I mean, I think it's,
I think they
I
get
like
some
to be able to say like,
HTML.
you know, wouldn't you say like third grade math is universal in con, right? So I'm just trying to see if there's a way. Well, I mean, from California to, you know, Toronto, is it somewhat universal or not? Maybe I'm misspeaking then.
Our math curriculum in Ontario is awful. So I would say if they can do, if you're worried about like, who should I start this with? I would say all of our grade 5s took it and ran. Our grade, like, again, and I'm saying grades just because I'm trying to like be clear because we all have different names for our different levels and all of that. But our 9-year-olds had a little bit of trouble. If they can't read exceptionally well, it's a little tricky. So that's where we started with a different program if their reading wasn't up to it. So we use like the Wonder Robotics or something like that, where it's a little bit more blocky. But in terms of like the grade 3, I would say if they do just this track grade 3, and I think they can do the track 3 in a month and a half, if they're doing a lesson a week. I think there's only like 5 or 6 units in the tracks.
I guess, Erin, what I'm trying to get at is
I'm sorry.
like, look, we have an exhibition, we have a badge ceremony at the end of sessions, and then I want to, you know, if an Eagle walks up and they'd say, oh, I finished 5th grade or 5th track of something, I'm not overselling or, you know, that they did something, right? I don't want to say, oh, all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow, they're an HTML expert, whereas it's maybe not the case. That's what I'm trying to understand. Maybe not a question to you, but maybe to,
Yeah.
yeah.
I will tell you with the tracks, I would say they're not a full grade. I think you can get it done in a month and a half, in my opinion, because it's really like, what is an algorithm? It's that type of
Yeah,
stuff.
so it's
You need
not.
the foundation. That HTML badge though is no joke. Like even the HTML1, I was so impressed with what they were learning, and it's pretty rigorous. And I think there's like, how many lessons, Jerem? There's like,
Yeah, there's around 40, over 40, I think, per course, per badge. One thing I can say, Tony, I work a lot with schools in California. We partner with Moreno Valley School District, Fontana, Chula Vista, Tustin, all over. So I'm very familiar with what they have in place. It's way more in the high schools that they'd have anything, and it's more of like an AP course or an introductory course. And even then, it's still a lot of the drag and drop besides their AP course. And so a lot of times they're upgrading to do Python in the high school or in the middle school and even HTML. And it's definitely an upgrade. It's as far as an upgrade, I mean, it's a little more difficult than what they were doing before, like the type of comprehension, but we've made it in a way where it's very simple for them to follow through and do, because everything's broken up in these modules or kind of units Aaron was mentioning that really take it, kind of step by step. So not taking on a ton at one time.
And Tony, for our middle schoolers, we didn't use any of the tracks. So the tracks are just really like 3, 4, 5, and they're kind of short and they're more just introductory. So in fact, any of my kids who had really coded before, I didn't even do them. I just put them straight into HTML.
Okay, got it.
So you'd say that, let's say we have some second and third grade heroes who would like to get started, but they don't have any experience before. Are you saying that they would get started with those tracks 3, 4, and 5, and then hop into HTML?
Yeah.
Or JavaScript?
Yeah, I would start with the HTML personally, just because again, it's colorful and you can see it right away. I found it to be the perfect precursor, and I just had everybody do it. And partially that was selfish because I didn't want to have to answer questions. So if everybody was working on the same language, they could all go to each other and collaborate and help each other debug. At this point now, we've got a few different languages going on. So when we were brainstorming for next year, we're going to continue doing hackathons, but they're going to use the skill set or Skillstruck projects. So they have all sorts of really cool projects. They're going to choose a project and go into, okay, the Python group is going to do this project. You're going to do that. And we're just going to order bubble tea and dim sum and code all day and create the best project that we can to show off.
Nice.
Whereas before we tried different other programs, and we've just felt a lot better about this, and the end product of what they actually got out of it, they still remember. I mean, I've got a couple kids who have their coding notebooks because they write down different code that they're going to have to remember. I know some of them are like, the lessons could be a bit more in depth, and then they go back and they reread the instructions and realize there was maybe a hyperlink they didn't go check. Where's Asher? I just lost him. SJ just told me, and in fact, I'll get her back out here, but she told me there were a couple times she didn't understand something. So she just hopped on Google and typed in what she was trying to figure out, read it on Google, then went back into Skillstruck. So she had a couple tabs open, or she's working on the CSS. And so then she'd pull back up the HTML course she had finished to grab the information she needed, and then go back and finish the project. And they're like, is that cheating? And I'm like, absolutely, like, that's what you're going to have to do. That is exactly what you should do. You're using all the resources you have available to you to solve your problem. So absolutely not cheating. It's pretty cool.
That's our development team, our software engineers at Skillstruck. Every time I look at their computer, they got a Google tab open. They're Googling something to learn how to code, and that's just how it is. So I love that they were able to figure that out. That's problem solving, right? Not having to come to your guide, but figure it out right away. Awesome. And thank you, Tony, for your question. And I can go in more depth if I need at a different time, if you'd like, or in the chat. I think someone else had a question. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I have a question to go back to kind of the logical order or how you set things up. So 3, 4, 5, and then start HTML. And then after that, then would you say they have option to do like CSS or JavaScript before then Python? Or how much, I guess, what do you lock? Do you have a certain kind of order, or what do you have unlocked for those courses?
I know Erin kind of mentioned she let everybody do HTML kind of as a start. You can have everything unlocked. If you have a student that's really bright, or if you want to kind of push them, you can have them, like what we're looking at right now in the Voyage, that's all 4 languages they have access to: Python, JavaScript, HTML, CSS. Each one of those are made where you don't necessarily have to have a coding background. It starts at ground zero. Python 1 is even ground zero, right? You don't have to know anything. So if you have those students that are a little older and they want to be pushed, they can kind of choose. Maybe have them research these 4 programming languages and what they do, which one you're most interested in and give it a try. And maybe if they don't like that one, they can switch later on or whatnot. But everything is available. And really, if they're if they're at a reading comprehension and they can do that, I would say push it and have them do HTML at least. Does that answer your question, Rachel?
Yeah, and Rachel, we just set it up with HTML because I did feel like it was a good entry point for all of our kids. And then once they finished that
locked
batch,
everything
I let
else?
them pick. I let them
Yeah.
pick whichever one they wanted to do.
Nice. Nice. And then I think you said this once, but when you said 1 badge per year, how many badges would that be? Is that like just in elementary, or is that elementary, middle school? And then is 1 badge would be like HTML1 and then HTML2.
Yeah, I set it up that every course was 1 badge. So again, out of the 32 kids or so that we had do SkillStruck this year, all of them but one, and I think he's gonna get it tomorrow. I think all of them earned 1 badge. A few earned 2, and then the majority are at least 2/3 of the way through their second. Just because we kind of did a 1 lesson a week thing. Again, some decided to do it on the weekends, but we don't have homework or anything like that. So it was really just, fitting it into course skills time. So
would you say that like for elementary and middle school, like how many badges for your school is required until either unlocking middle school or unlocking Launchpad? Or
we set it at 1 badge a year. So in our lower elementary, so again, like our 7, 8, 9-year-olds, again, we've created either like a Wonder Robotics badge or a Scratch badge or that type of thing as a precursor. And then as soon as they hit grade 4, we've said it's the HTML badge. And then so once they've earned that one, then it's just 1 every single year they're with us. So, but this is our first year with SkillStruck. So this is the first year that we've required that badge. Before, we've just tried to infuse it on special days, hour of code and here and there. And it was nice to just have it as a part of core skills, and it's throughout the entire year.
So Erin,
yeah.
So is it going to be required to go to middle school then to get the coding badges?
Yeah. So again, if they've only been with us 1 year, they need the 1 badge. If they've been with us 2 years, it'll be 2 badges. So because we started it, they have to like build their way up, right? We're not going to expect
that makes sense. Yeah.
To come in with 4 badges when they've been with us for a year. That's not fair. And again, I think what they're getting with the HTML is more than they would have gotten anywhere else. So to me, honestly, it's not even necessarily the coding and that they can do HTML. It's the fact that they stuck with the course that for the entire, session of it, because it's not easy. So that shows me if they finish that 1 badge, they're probably meant to be a rebel because it shows everything that we're asking our learners to do. Hi, Mark.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Both of you are there. Hi, Veronica.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Great, great.
Good.
So I have a question. So for example, if we do the HTML in level 4, then how many badges are until you finish the, all of the badges?
Okay, Jerem, how many courses? There's 3.
Is that a me question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So HTML 1, 2, CSS 1, 2, JavaScript 1, 2, and then Python. So 9 total, right as of right now.
Okay.
In the Voyage, and we're constantly adding. In the next couple of years here, we're gonna even have more and more different languages and more courses. So for right now, this first year that you all would join would be 9.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So you would start everybody from 4th up with HTML, and then they could do as much as the ones that are already in 10th grade will probably only can fit maybe 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, and Veronica, we just started our Launchpad like a month ago, so we haven't necessarily used it with our high schoolers. but I think getting, yeah, a couple badges and having them, I mean, talk about what a great quest that could be though, creating their own website, doing all of that. Like, I feel like there's a way we could write a quest.
Yeah, that would be great. So you started it this year, just elementary and middle, correct?
Yes. Yes, but I would say the Python, the JavaScript, even the HTML, like they're definitely hard enough for a high schooler who hasn't coded before. Like there's
Okay.
definitely still a challenge there.
And then you already created your badges in Journey Tracker?
Yeah.
And then for Launchpad this year that you'll be starting, what badges will you require for them?
I'm still gonna ask them to do one badge a year, but they get to choose again which ones they want to do. So if they want to deeply specialize, I think that's ideal. Like if they want to go into the Python 1, 2, 3, I think that's ideal. But if they do the Python and it's not their thing, I'd like them to try something else. Because again, most of my kids, I mean, they might not use it in their career. I just want them to be able to learn a new language, try something new. And even in Launchpad, like that's what I'm hoping. I've got 2 Launchpadders in the fall, that's it. And both of them are very more the arts creative type. So they've dived right into the HTML, CSS one, because they want to create this like role-playing website. And so they feel like that might be where they want to go. But now that, again, Asher's learning Python and a couple are doing JavaScript, I think they're going to team up and try and figure out how they can utilize each other to create something they want.
And then on the other end of the age spectrum, we've had our 5-year-olds do really well with code.org. How far down has this been tried? Have you had 4-year-olds or 3-year-olds jump in?
I haven't, just because there is reading and I'm trying to keep it as student-led as possible. So the youngest I went with this year was 7. And especially, yeah, our Sparks used the Sparks used more of the robots that weren't on screens because we're Montessori and we don't have the screens in there. But I don't know, Jerem, I don't know what the youngest you normally see.
It's definitely built out like a traditional school or district, right? K through 12. So we have 5-year-olds using it all the time. It's in grades K through 2, it's a little more unplugged. There is an introduction to the block-based in first and second, but a lot of it is more like understanding computer parts and more of the unplugged activities. So if you have a guide and you have time to do that, they work really great. We have all the lesson plans for that. It makes it super easy for you. But if you want to switch more towards Aaron's role and do more of the student-led, yeah, maybe like around a traditional 3rd grade student, whatever that would look like for your students would be perfect. They can go perfectly right down the line.
And I will say we'll probably use the lesson plans more, but in a very strategic way through like launches or something like that, not through lessons, because again, we use this during core skills, they just go. But their lesson plans, I was looking over them again this last week and I'm like, oh, that would have been like, even on internet safety and online safety and stuff like that they've gotten the lesson plans. So I think we're going to go back through and utilize those. But for my first year, I was pretty much just like, here you go. Don't ask me questions. On the other hand, there is an answer key, which he hasn't said, which I didn't really discover until halfway through the year. And I'm kind of glad I didn't discover it until halfway through the year, because by that point they figured everything out. But there is an answer key. So if you've got a kid who's like, it is broken, it's not working, blah, blah, blah.
I love that you mentioned that there's internet safety, and I think that's pretty neat too.
Yeah, so those are in the lesson plans.
Yeah.
In the chat box, Anne mentioned that we align to the CSTA standards, which are the Computer Science Teachers Association standards. And it's a lot more than just coding in those standards. You're going to learn digital citizenship, cyber security, how to block your accounts, and so many different things, data storage, all of this software and hardware, those kind of things that you're not learning when you're learning Python or JavaScript. So you get a really well-rounded education on that. So that's all throughout the lesson plans, and even throughout a lot of the modules, you'll learn things like that as well.
How would you guys recommend introducing this to our students? Like we have, some students who are very new and some who are more advanced and actually maybe take coding classes in their spare time. What is your recommendation?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on their level of kind of where they'd want to start. I would say anyone who's like, let's say traditional 4th, 5th grader, at that level, I would, just because I know working with, Aaron's students and things, from that level and up, I would get them in Voyage. Very sharp kids. And so I would get them in Voyage, which is that higher level. It's more for the secondary grades. And let's say if they are very experienced, I imagine they haven't done every single coding language that we offer, right? And so let's say if they've done some web development, have them do Python. Python is fairly new. Not a lot of students have dealt with that. And when you get up to Python 1, 2, and 3, it's going to push them really well. And then JavaScript as well. It's challenging. So
how do we as guides or administrators, know what to do, like where to place them? Because they might say, "Oh, I've done it before." Or there's no like real metric, quantitative way to decide what's the best placement.
Like an
We use
assessment.
yeah, exactly. Now you're going, like we've used other programs like Dreambox, which kind of does like sort of an assessment of where you are. You kind of give like an earshot of your math level, and then it'll kind of, make it progressively harder with an AI on the back end. I'm just trying to understand, like, how do I best position it for my different varying levels of egos?
yeah, so we actually by fall are rolling out assessments for all the coding languages that will be available to you, so you can use those for your students to see where their knowledge is at and where they're best suited. When you start, let's say we're rolling out, we do what's called a success meeting, where we talk about what goals and data you want to see, and so we provide that for you, throughout the whole school year. And then we do the implementation. So now that's with your guides. If you are the founder and guide, we're gonna do the implementation where, okay, let's break down your students and what they need, what they're wanting, and we'll tell you the best path to do. Like we'll give you the whole roadmap, and we're not just selling you like a curriculum or a platform, and then you have to be on your own. If you see Ann on here, she's our director of customer support, and her and her team they monitor you'll see a little blue, let's go back to the portal. There's a little blue chat box right here where throughout the school day, if you have a question, our team and her team are right there to answer that. They're super quick at it too. And they can see a lot of times the line of code that your student's working on, and it can help you out. So we're with you every step of the way, and we'll make sure that your guides are confident, and also your students, where they're at, what they're doing, that they're confident. And there can always, maybe it's not a one size fits all. They can easily switch to a different course to get a different badge if that's something that's not their cup of tea.
They have saved me multiple times. Thank you, Anne. Now I have a face. And I've really appreciated that they've checked in. God, we had like quarterly reports sent to us on how many different, where our kids were at and how many lessons they were doing and all of that. And I actually reached out and I said, you don't need to send this to me. This has got to take you so much time to put all these things together. But there is a lot of communication. Jerem, I was just going to ask if there's a way you could show the elementary side, just because the side you were showing it was in Voyage, which again looks different than the Launchpad side. I know you guys, we have Launchpad as high school in Acton, and they have Launchpad as their elementary. So we have to talk our vocabulary, but it's again, it just looks differently, and the elementary kids like the way it looks. So then when they switched to the middle school, it took them a little bit, but they were ready for it after by the time they were ready for HTML. I saw there was a question too, though, so I jumped in before I probably should have.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
I think Ines had her hand raised. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Do you have a question?
Yeah, no, I was wondering, this looks very interesting. Our learners are usually enter our school with no English, and they work their way through because we don't teach English, so they just do Duolingo and they do Khan in English. So we encourage them to work on several apps in English, but the reading is the one, the skill that takes the longest. So with that in mind, my question was, which level do you think an elementary school Puma, well, we call them Pumas, Eagle would be? Because I was thinking of using this more for a middle school, but I don't know if you work with people with other languages or have, I don't know, have
Yeah.
experience with that.
Yeah, no, great question. So our entire platform, K through 12, is translated into Spanish. So all the videos are going to have, captions. Every single textbook is in Spanish. A lot of coding, just how it is created, the words sometimes are still going to be in English because it's not like it's a universal language coding. But as far as the teaching aspect, education, everything is in Spanish. So you can have them start wherever you'd like. Maybe you can have them start in the younger grades, maybe get some of the block-based coding, get familiar with how that process works, and then you can switch them right over to HTML on the voyage, right on the secondary. And again, it can all be in Spanish, and really quickly by clicking on their avatar that they can create and customize, they can switch to English to Spanish if that's what you want them to do. Does that work?
Thank you. Yeah, that's very helpful. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, so pricing, would there be a discount if we had X number of licensed purchase Acton Group? Good question. So pricing, we're trying to work out something that would be beneficial for Actons, and I know student numbers vary. So we have a standard $80 per student per year. So $80 student license. Our minimum is 30 students, so that's $2,400 for the whole year to have access to Skillstruck for up to 30 students. If you have more than 30, then you just add $80 per student onto that. We typically don't do much combined, so I'm trying to think of what we could do. It might be like a per case basis. And if you're able to put a link, the link for the survey, if you want to put that into the chat, if everyone wants to take time at the end, or you can do it when we're finished here. But if you fill out that survey, I can get back to you. In your comments, you can put if you're interested in the group pricing. But typically, it's just because of our cost of implementing it and support on our end, we typically can't go less than 30 students. So I'd definitely love to figure out a way to make sure everybody can get access, because I know this would be great for your students. So I definitely fight for you. But if you want to put that information in the survey, then we can work from there. Let's see, I had another question.
Jeremy, you guys are working a lot with the equity piece.
Yep.
I've noticed, and some of these schools, I feel it would be definitely a target market when it comes to the equity piece. What is, I don't know. I'm just saying, I know on your that has been a thing I keep getting emails about. What is that all about?
So what we're doing with equity in computer science. Yeah. So, I work with a lot of schools in California, like I mentioned. And one big thing there is computer science education has really been for only the affluent neighborhoods, or a lot of if we look at the students that are enrolled in computer science classes, it doesn't match the demographics of the students at all. And then also the workforce. Let's say California, they have over 55% Latinx students, but they only have 12, 14% that are enrolled in computer science. And even in the tech workforce, it's even worse than that. So we're helping diversify the workforce, really provide, right now, if you like a certified Python engineer in computer science, right? They're making well over 6 figures, 110, 120,000 a year, knowing Python. And so we think that's how a lot of families can break the chain of generational poverty, creating a really strong economy with, right, in 2020, there was a projected like 1 million jobs in computer science unfulfilled. And so helping, again, provide more equity in schools, provide more, young girls, students of color, that this doesn't have to be all gaming and not so fun, that it can be engaging and can be something that you can see yourself doing in the future as well. Yeah. So I definitely think that we can do something for Acton's coming together. I just want to have everybody have on the back of their mind. For those schools that, like Aaron, who has more than 30 students, like that's pretty standard. For those that wouldn't meet that, definitely let's have a conversation and work together. Because I think, if we're able to do an implementation with y'all and make sure your students get access, I think it would work great. So we got, okay, yeah. No, but I totally get it. I totally get it. And that's a huge part of equity, is working with small schools, making sure they get access, the same ones that big schools do. So I appreciate, Rachel, you putting that information in there and fighting for that. I know we're kind of out of time. This is an hour-long event. We want to do something hands-on. What I can do, I know you probably want to get like your hands dirty, want to figure it out, go through the lessons yourself. I'll send you all a link to make your own teacher demo account. So you can look at all the lesson plans if you want to. You can see everything the teacher has, but then you can go and try out things on the kiddos, on the younger kiddos, and also the secondary students, and play around with it and see, with my 12-year-old, what do you want to do, this or that? And you can start kind of game planning. But as far as kind of getting set up before school starts up again and things, it's great to get implementations out of the way, get comfortable with the platform, and make sure everything's ready for your students when school starts around. So definitely in the survey, there's a part if you have any questions or comments, we can roll from that as well via email. But Aaron, any kind of final questions or thoughts?
I do have SJ and Asher, so if you guys do want to ask them any questions, please feel free to do so. I would say one of the other cool things that we noticed is that they after doing Skillstruck, and it was only after doing Skillstruck, they started noticing code in different places, and they started, our Google Chats or Google Hangouts have now become a coding playground where they code different things, and all of a sudden different images pop up. Is that
like /corgis and then like a dog?
Like corgis? Yeah, if you do a /corgis, a dog will run across and stuff like that. So they're seeing these connections in the world around them, not just in this one platform. Whereas that's kind of how we had seen coding before. It was like the one website or that one app or whatever. And so it's kind of cool that they're seeing it now. They'll even go in the back end. You know how you can check like the website, like coding? They're starting to go into that and kind of look at it and, well, how do they do that? Which I've never had them do before, which I think is really, really cool. So again, that curiosity factor that they haven't had. So I know it's expensive. Like this is, it was a big part of our budget this year. We chose to not buy a few other things. I wouldn't throw this out there if I didn't think it was worth it though. But again, I know you all have your own, specialties and stuff. And for us, this was something that was really important to us. And that's why we did go for it. I know there are other options out there. We've tried them. We weren't as happy with them, but I do know it's an expense. So I appreciate anybody who's willing to come out and check this out. And you can always email me on the side and ask me any questions that you want to if you don't want to hear, but I'm happy to answer them. And SJ and Asher, do you have any things that you haven't said that you feel, or any questions for them before you guys try something hands-on? Nope. 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 Are you glad you did it?
Yeah.
You glad you did it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the first one I actually had fun doing.
First coding experience that you enjoyed?
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I definitely know I've kept you past your time, each one of you. And so I want to make sure you're still able to get in and try out the platform. So I'll make sure you each get that link to try out. Any other questions before I let you all go that we can help you out with? Okay. Well,
How do we go find pricing?
yeah, so it is customized. So I know you probably had to hop off there and hop back on.
Yeah, so I did have to.
No worries. We talked about typically it's $80 per student per year. Typically there's a minimum of 30 students per year, but for those that don't have quite 30 students, we're going to try to figure out some custom pricing to loop some schools together to make it, for those that don't have the full, right, to make it worth their while, so their students can still get access and they get the benefit. One thing I do want to mention is we have an on-demand professional development called Campus Pro, and it's tons of video resources teaching you or your guides how to teach computer science, and that's usually $1,000 per month. And I got permission to waive that cost for any Acton school that wants to join. So if you do have your students hop in, all your teachers will get access to Campus Pro for free, and they can learn how to teach coding. So super fun thing we're rolling out. So just a big thing there. So again, thank you all so much for jumping on. I know it's the summertime and a lot of stuff going on in the evening, but feel free to reach out with any questions and be on the lookout for the email.